The room didn't just go quiet that night, it froze. The kind of silence that crawls across marble floors and tightens around people's throats. This was one of those flawless London galas where everything is polished to perfection, diamonds glittering under chandeliers, champagne glasses catching the light, elegance layered on top of elegance. Victoria Beckham stood on that stage the way she always did, controlled, composed, almost untouchable. People have always said she could walk through fire without letting her voice shake, but this night was different. She was only supposed to present an award, a brief moment, a graceful smile, applause, and then gone. Instead, halfway through her speech, she stopped, not dramatically, just enough. Her hand rested on the podium. She leaned forward slightly, her eyes locked onto a journalist in the crowd, and when she spoke, her voice didn't tremble. It hardened. 12 words. Calm, sharp, final. I kept quiet too long. People need to know what she did. No name was spoken. None was needed. Every person in that room knew exactly who she meant. Meghan Markle. Before the lights even dimmed, an 11-second phone recording was already online. By morning, it had exploded across the internet. Millions of views. Not curiosity, shock. The kind of shock that hits when the quietest woman in the room finally speaks. Because if Victoria Beckham broke decades of silence, something serious had happened. Something deep enough to push her past grace and into truth. To understand why that moment mattered so much, you have to go back to when this story wasn't a scandal, when it looked like support, like friendship. When Meghan first entered royal life, she wasn't just marrying into a family. She was stepping into the most brutal spotlight imaginable. Tradition, rules, cameras, judgment, all at once. She was new, far from home, and completely unprepared for the cruelty of the British press. Victoria Beckham understood that world better than almost anyone. She had survived it, learned how to move quietly, how to protect herself, how to build power without showing cracks. And because she understood that pressure, she did something rare. She reached out, not publicly, personally. Sources said Victoria shared her most private contacts, stylists who could fix disasters overnight, PR experts who could make problems vanish before headlines even formed, discreet spa owners trusted by the most guarded celebrities alive. These weren't contacts you Googled. These were doors that opened only if Victoria Beckham handed you the key. She wanted Meghan protected, supported, surrounded by people who knew how to survive this world. And she didn't stop there. The two women were soon seen together at Wimbledon, laughing, leaning in, comfortable. Victoria sent pieces from her fashion line directly to Kensington Palace, letting Meghan select items for fittings. That wasn't common. That was trust. Inside the fashion world, people whispered the same thing. Victoria didn't have to do any of this. She chose to. For a while, it looked perfect. Meghan praised Victoria's designs. Victoria's team quietly celebrated. A duchess wearing your clothes changes everything. Cameras caught them whispering courtside, two powerful women forming what looked like a genuine alliance. Hollywood glamour meeting British discipline. Two women who understood pressure. Two women who seemed to understand each other. But something small shifted. So small no one noticed. A crack that whispered before it screamed. By late 2019, Meghan began to feel uneasy. Tiny details from her private life were appearing in the press. Nothing explosive, just personal. Too personal. Things only a handful of people knew. Someone was talking. No proof. No names. But in quiet conversations, one name started surfacing. Victoria Beckham. To most people, the idea was absurd. Victoria had spent her life guarding privacy like armor. She knew what leaks destroyed. Why would she ever risk that? But suspicion doesn't need logic. It only needs fear. Meghan never confronted her. She didn't accuse. She didn't ask questions. She simply pulled away. Messages slowed. Invitations stopped. Silence replaced warmth. Victoria felt it before she understood it. That sudden cold distance, being shut out without explanation. And as months passed, the silence grew heavier. By the time Meghan and Harry stepped back from royal duties, the separation was complete. No appearances, no polite exchanges. The Beckhams vanished from their world overnight. One insider described it as a switch flipping. Closed one day, strangers the next. Victoria didn't react. She didn't complain. She didn't defend herself. She did what she always did. She stayed quiet, focused on work, family, building, enduring. Most people assumed the story would end there, quietly, forever. They were wrong. What broke the silence wasn't gossip. It was something far more personal. Victoria had been preparing a children's hospital fundraiser. Months of planning. Her money, her time, her reputation. When Meghan agreed to co-host, it felt like the final piece. A duchess beside Victoria Victoria Beckham guaranteed attention and donations, until suddenly it didn't. Weeks before the event, Meghan reportedly told organizers Victoria's name didn't align with the royal vision. An email surfaced, polite language, cold meaning, concerns about brand alignment, external narratives, and just like that, Victoria's name disappeared. From posters, from credit, from recognition, her contributions erased. People close to Victoria say she felt humiliated. She hadn't done this for attention. She believed in the cause. Instead of gratitude, she was quietly removed. No conversation, no explanation. That was the moment something shattered. Not professionally, personally. She realized the friendship she protected had been one-sided all along. Then came the gala, and then came David Beckham. The morning after Victoria's words went viral, David posted a simple family photo. No drama, just warmth, laughter, unity, and beneath it one sentence. Truth always comes out in the end, no tags, no accusations, but everyone understood. This wasn't a caption, it was loyalty. Support poured in. Quietly, powerfully. Meanwhile, Meghan's circle went silent. No statements, no defenses. Even Harry avoided questions, head down, lips sealed. Then, late at night, the internet exploded again. Those words landed harder than any accusation. Because they were calm, measured, final. And now the world waits. Because when a woman like Victoria Beckham speaks once, she may speak again. And if what she hinted at is only half the truth, then this isn't the end. It's the beginning. The waiting is the loudest part now. Louder than headlines, louder than social media, louder than even that frozen silence in the gala room. Because once Victoria Beckham cracked the door open, people began to realize how much had been hidden behind it for years. Those close to Victoria say she didn't sleep much after that night, not because she regretted what she said, but because she knew exactly what she had started. When you are a woman who has survived decades in the public eye by saying nothing, the moment you finally speak is never impulsive. It's calculated, it's deliberate, and it usually comes after you've reached a point where silence hurts more than truth. Friends noticed a shift. Not anger, not revenge, something calmer, firmer. Victoria wasn't scrambling to defend herself. She wasn't calling editors or issuing statements. She was doing something far more dangerous. She was letting the world connect the dots on its own. And the dots were everywhere. Old interviews resurfaced. Moments people ignored before suddenly felt heavy. The way Victoria had quietly stepped back from certain circles. The way her name vanished from events she once anchored. The way her generosity had never been publicly acknowledged. People started asking questions they hadn't dared to ask before. Not what happened, but why did she stay quiet so long? Because Victoria Beckham doesn't explode. She absorbs. She doesn't shout. She documents. And when she finally moves, it's not messy. It's precise. Meanwhile, Meghan Markle's silence began to feel different. Not dignified. Not strategic. Uneasy. The kind of silence that comes when every possible response makes things worse. Her supporters tried to steer the narrative back to familiar ground, insisting this was another unfair attack, another misunderstanding. But something wasn't sticking this time. The usual defenses felt thin, rehearsed. The world had heard Victoria's voice, calm and unshaking, and it didn't sound like someone spinning a story. It sounded like someone who had carried something heavy for too long. Industry insiders began whispering again, carefully, about patterns, about how often Meghan's inner circle changed, how many friendships burned out quietly behind the scenes. Stylists, advisors, allies, people who were once praised, then suddenly erased. And for the first time, Victoria's experience didn't look like an exception. It looked familiar. David Beckham's role remained simple and devastatingly effective. He said nothing more. He didn't need to. His presence alone sent a message. This wasn't a public relations battle. This was personal. A husband standing next to his wife, not because it was loud, but because it was right. People noticed the contrast. One couple unified, grounded, unbothered. The other surrounded by rumors, leaks, and unanswered questions. Then came the industry shift. Quiet at first. Invitations that didn't arrive. Designers who suddenly chose distance. Charities reconsidering partnerships. Not because anyone declared sides, but because association is currency in that world. And uncertainty is expensive. No one wants to be too close to a storm when they sense lightning coming. Behind closed doors, sources say Victoria was approached repeatedly. Producers, editors, networks. Everyone wanted her version. She declined again and again. Not yet, not like that. If she spoke, it wouldn't be for spectacle. It would be controlled. on her terms, because the truth doesn't need theatrics when it's strong enough to stand alone. What unsettled people most wasn't what Victoria said, it was what she didn't. She never listed accusations, never detailed moments, never dragged names through mud, and somehow that restraint made everything heavier. It forced people to imagine what could be bad enough to push her to break decades of discipline. As days passed, the narrative shifted again. This wasn't about fashion or friendships or even leaked details. It was about power, about how silence can be weaponized, about how kindness can be mistaken for weakness until the moment it's withdrawn. Victoria had given support without conditions. When that generosity was turned against her, she didn't retaliate immediately. She watched, she waited. And when she finally spoke, she didn't raise her voice. She simply stopped protecting the wrong person. Meghan's camp reportedly explored legal angles, not because Victoria accused her of anything concrete, but because implication can be just as damaging. The problem was, you can't sue someone for telling their own truth when they haven't actually said anything at all. Victoria's words were careful, emotional, human, and legally clean. That alone revealed how experienced she truly was. Public sentiment continued to tilt, not violently, but steadily, like weight shifting on a scale. People who once dismissed criticism began to hesitate, not because they hated Meghan, but because they believed Victoria. And belief is a powerful thing when it settles quietly rather than being forced. When asked again by a reporter weeks later whether she regretted speaking out, Victoria paused, just for a moment. And then she said something that didn't trend as loudly, but lingered longer. She said she regretted waiting so long. Because silence, she learned, doesn't always keep the peace. Sometimes it just gives the wrong person more room. That sentence alone reframed everything. This wasn't revenge, this wasn't jealousy, this was release. The sound of a woman finally setting something down after carrying it alone. The story doesn't have a neat ending yet. No explosive interview, no tell-all confession, no dramatic confrontation. And that's what makes it unsettling. Because this isn't the kind of story that burns fast and disappears. It lingers. It reshapes reputation slowly. It changes how people listen the next time someone smiles too perfectly or speaks too carefully. Victoria Beckham returned to her work, her family, her routine. But something about her presence feels different now. Lighter, as if she no longer carries the burden of protecting someone who never protected her back. Meghan Markle remains quiet, and in that quiet, questions grow. The world is still waiting, not for a scandal, not for chaos, but for the next moment when truth decides it's tired of waiting. And if Victoria speaks again, it won't be because she's angry. It will be because she's done being silent, because she's done being silent, because she's done being silent, because she's